Maayong adlaw, DepEd Norman. Ako ang inyong kauban sa yuta, tubig, hangin, ug sunog. My name is Ramon Gonzalez Abrera.
And I'm attorney Candy Zenia Razon. Friend, murag nahadlok man ko adto imong sunog. Pero kulang to. Dapat ugsa kasing-kasing.
Unsa lugar, Captain Planet?
Unsa pa man di ay? Earth, water, fire, wind, and heart.
Teka, hindi ko naisip Tama tama no? But attorney, this is not Captain Planet. This is not also Encantadia. Kini ang
BigaTEN! DepEd!
10.
That's right. Welcome to our pilot episode of BigaTEN DepEd 10. In this regional program, we have prepared different segments that will quench your thirst for DepEd updates and other pieces of information.
Correct ka dyan, turns. We have Anong Bago, Arturo. This is the part of our program that will basically discuss the latest DepEd issuances.
Yes, Sir Mon. We will also have For the Win, Norman, which will showcase the region's recognitions and awards. And this segment will also feature DepEd learners, teachers, staff, organizations, and offices for their accomplishments and innovations.
Finally, turns, we have Anong Meron Ngayon, which is our focus for our pilot episode today. We have so much to discuss, and I believe our viewers are now on standby, just waiting for us to shoot the first question.
I must agree with you, Sir Mon. Ug sa dili pa nato himay-himayon ang atong pagahisgutan karon, ato usa kining tan-awon ug mobalik ang BigaTEN DepEd 10.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching BigaTEN DepEd 10. Again, with me is my co-host, Attorney Candice. Candice?
Thanks, Sir Mon. We are now definitely on board for our focused segment in today's pilot episode, Anong Meron Ngayon? And of course, to help us shed some light on many issues concerning our preparations for the upcoming opening of classes, please help me welcome our very own DepEd 10 Regional Director, Dr. Arturo B. Bayocot. Maayong hapon, maayong adlaw, RDR.
Hello, RDR.
Maayong hapon, Attorney Candice. Maayong hapon, Ramon. My Public Affairs Unit Head. Maayong hapon ka natong tanan. This is very timely, no? Because we are almost close to the opening of classes and questions now are even elevated to the higher level in terms of anxieties of parents, anxieties of everyone. So I think this is a very good opportunity for us to continue our education, communication, information, and advocacy activities in terms of letting people know kung unsa gyud ning atong kahimtang karon. Because in many talks that I already have delivered, nobody has prepared for this. No, we didn't see this COVID-19 coming. And we were not ready for this. But life has to move on. Dili pwedeng muhunong tagpagpakabuhi tungod kay naay COVID. And I think many experts are telling us that this will remain. Probably in the next 3 years. That's why we really have to embrace the challenges of this new normal. Make sure we will address it so that we'll be able to continue our lives. Especially we at the Department of Education, where education is a very important component of life. No? We cannot really separate life. We cannot really separate education from health. So we really have to push through our plans of giving that right to every Filipino, the right to education. And pag yun, right to education, the right to quality education.
That's right, RD. But before that, RD, earlier in our break, we showed a short AVP of this RX Adobe. Let's take it from there, RD. Would you kindly tell us something about that program? What is it all about?
On March 16, when the pandemic hit, apparently our country with that declaration of, for the first time, katong enhanced community quarantine by our president, the Department of Education also started its efforts to really prepare for it. No? It was still far from the issue on opening of classes because, matter of fact, that mid-March, maupatuunta ang ato ang preparations to end the school year. As a matter of fact, many of our classes were not able to conduct the quarter 4 exams, and many activities were done to prepare for the graduation, recognition, or closing exercises. But apparently, all these were actually cancelled. So DepEd also did its measures, point to point, time after time, to make sure we are able to close that school year formally, prepare for summer classes, and now we are preparing for the opening of classes. We did scenario planning because we were instructed by the Department of Education, as we also see the felt need, that even without the face-to-face opportunity to convene our people, to congregate our staff, we have to do it differently, no? Mo na to nga nisulod na gyud ang importante sa technology, kasi kailangan natin mag-usap-usap kung anong gagawin, and that was the issue on the discussion for the learning continuity plans of education institutions. So we did environmental scanning, we did strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, and then of course we started to really take a look at how do we take off with the learning continuity plans. And in the region, that brought to us the inception of the program RX Adobe.
So what are featured in this RX Adobe, RD?
Kining RX, literally, if you'll define it, well, RX, when we buy something, no, from palitag tambal, will be given a prescription by the doctor using an RX pad. So, operationally, we defined it as prescribing. I'm prescribing Adobe. Adobe is a company known for its multimedia and creativity software products. But as an adopted acronym of the Department of Education's Learning Continuity Plans, we say it's Region 10, Alternative Delivery of Basic Education, because apparently we cannot really go on with our mandates the usual way we deliver. We are to deliver education, but definitely not within the comfort zones na atong nakasanayan, ano. So it's really prescribing creative, innovative, alternative processes, strategies, and activities aimed at effectively accomplishing the goals that are set in the Department of Education, specifically or more specifically in the teaching and learning process.
So when we say prescribing, RD, what are we prescribing in the department?
Earlier on, I said we will be prescribing the creativity in the delivery. In the Department of Education, matagal na nausapin itong tinatawag nating alternative delivery modes or flexible learning options. And there were many bits and pieces, smaller programs under this. But to start with the discussion on the different learning delivery modalities that we are preparing for the new normal as we deliver education amidst pandemic, number one is face-to-face delivery. The conventional face-to-face delivery, where the teacher is in the classroom and the students are there present before the teacher. There's interaction, there's teaching. But apparently, if we will adopt face-to-face delivery at this time of pandemic, it was emphatically said by the secretary kagabi ilang, no, when the secretary had presented the proposal of the Department of Education to President Duterte, that it's going to be limited face-to-face delivery. Limited in a sense that we cannot bring all the students to be in the classroom. Otherwise, we will not be able to adhere to the required public minimum health standards. With one of that is yung social or physical distancing. So if I am a teacher with 40 students, it's impossible that I can bring the 40 in one setting because I'll not be able to observe that. So kung face-to-face, it's really limited. Ang discussion ni Secretary Briones, which I strongly agree, is this cannot even be adapted to a student from Monday to Friday. So it may just be one day per week, or 2 days in a week, or it could only be focused on the competencies that are hardly taught or hardly learned by the students, so that the teacher has to make plans that when face-to-face can be adapted, it's going to focus on the matters like kadtong dili gyud pwede makatunan sa bata on his own right at home, especially on the subjects where laboratory activities are to be given. Science, for example, kinahanglan science laboratory, or even in our technology and livelihood education to feature, for example, cooking, pastry, bread and pastry. Wala man sila dito yung mga gamit sa balay, no? So we have to bring them to our laboratory at the public school facilities. And again, this has to be planned out. But for now, murag klaro gyud nya dili pa gyud ni magamit, especially for the areas that the risk severity classification are still high. Well, in the recent IATF discussion, Interagency Task Force at the national level, pwede ang face-to-face on the following conditionalities. One, pwede siya sa mga modified general community quarantine low-risk areas. But it's not just because by virtue of being low-risk, immediately face-to-face can be adopted. Because it has to follow conditionalities like kinahanglan, konsultahon, o kinahanglan ang approval, o kinahanglan ang evaluation sa local government unit, Department of Health, nga moadto sa eskwelahan, mo check if the facility is really ready to make sure nga na atong foot bath, na atong washing facility, because we encourage the frequent washing of the hands, that there are markers when they go para dili sila magbangga. There should be entrance door and exit door, that in a class of 7 by 9 standard size, kinahanglan lang yun 15 ang students if the furnitures are tables and chairs, and if it's two-seater desks, we could probably increase it to a maximum of 20. So kinahanglan bahinon yun ang mga bata, batches, no? So mauna karon ang special feature added to a face-to-face delivery, which is not really following the conventional face-to-face. That's number one modality na atong gitan-aw karon nga dili pag yun magamit sa tanan, because if we adopt this, then we have to adhere to all those conditionalities that I was explaining.
Clarification, RD, will this have to be uniform for all schools division offices? Kining maskin pag may kang limited face-to-face?
Dili gyud siya. This is really site-based, because that has to factor in the current health conditions of the place. Probably, limited face-to-face can be done in areas like wala gyoy COVID positive cases, no? Sa mga bukid, nga dili kaayo maabot gyud sa maong scare, no? And again, even probably in the highway schools, for as long as they really have to follow the conditionalities that I cited earlier on, and this really has to have approval in conformance with the guidelines set by the Department of Education, Department of Health, the local government unit, and even in the armed forces, because there are really concerns, micro concerns, that are really handled by these different agencies that will contribute to a very safe teaching and learning. Kay kita gyud sa DepEd, we would like to impress upon all of you, all of them, people out there listening, that we cannot sacrifice health at this time of our efforts, because DepEd still considers health and safety as the primordial concerns of the Department of Education. At marami akong sinasabi na hindi mo naman talaga pwede, attorney, na paghiwalayin yung health at saka education, di ba? Kasi kapag health, kailangan turuan ng bata ng health, no? Para ma-maintain niya ang kanyang health, kailangan maraming inputs. And these are concerns of education. Education not in a formal setup, but in any form. Kailangan talaga i-edukar nimo ang bata para makabalo siya unsa iyang buhaton, para ma-maintain niya ang health. Kana pong education, dili pwedeng i-focus lang po sa bata. Wala siya magtanaw sa iyang health condition. Because an empty sack cannot stand. It has to be filled. Kailangan puno muna bago tatayo yung sako. So, parang ganun eh. You cannot really separate health and education. So, these are two equally important concerns that are now inspiring the efforts and challenging the efforts of the Department of Education.
Alright, so aside from face-to-face delivery, RD, what's the second one?
Nagana, no, sa atong menu sa Department of Education, Ramon. Another modality is kini atong gitawag o apprenticeship. Diretso ta sa apprenticeship, no? In our delivery, especially at grades 11 and 12, these are 2 school years that are skill development years when we introduced the K-12 program sa pag-restructure na to sa atong curriculum sa Department of Education. And one important component in skill development is really kanang on-the-job training. We call it OJT. Tawag ko na sa uban of internship. Ang iba naman tawag nila immersion.
Or practicum sa mga teachers.
Practicum or apprenticeship. But this is actually a component of the child's learning to be able to learn by doing. So it's learning by doing. So with all the theories and principles and directions that are inputted to the child, he has to execute this or convert this into concrete actions para mapatunayan niya na siya talaga ay natututo. And apprenticeship as a component in our K-12 really requires partnership with industries, with education partners. Thereby, dito nila mahon ang ilang mga skills. For example, kung ako enrolled ko sa TVL track, Technology, Vocational, and Livelihood Education, and probably I'm taking automotive mechanic. So, the schools have partnered with industries that will develop the child learning how to be a mechanic. So, tingali mo partner sa atong Toyota, sa atong, and all this, no? And then, the very important time requirements have to be spent religiously in doing those things to be able to hone the skills. And with this pandemic right now, we can take advantage of that apprenticeship by even extending a little more than what are required in terms of the number of hours. Kasi ako talaga naniniwala na hindi lang po sa pakikinig at panunood tayo natututo. Mas natututo tayo kapag ginawa talaga natin yung isang gawain. And that's actually what is featured about apprenticeship. But apparently in our K-12 program, murag naaraning apprenticeship as a modality to be adapted among grades 11 and 12 or senior high school levels of the basic education. Mauna. Attorney, bright kay ka na, oy. Bright kay ka na, Ramon.
So, RD, apprenticeship still is limited to grade 11 and 12. Pero i-extend lang ang ilang number of hours.
Yeah,
That could be a possibility to extend the number of hours of immersion in the actual industry.
Okay, and then another conditionality to really adapt apprenticeship is when work immersions that require face-to-face or going out of the house, going to the industries can be allowed by the authorities that study the development of our health conditions in the locality. Kaya kung strict yun kayo, halimbawa, God forbids, nag-worsen ang situation to the point that the authorities have to declare it a total lockdown. Wala talagang pwedeng lumabas. Ay, hindi ka pwedeng lumabas dahil may apprenticeship ka. So, kailangan pa rin, we have to adhere to the developments. That's why we have to hook ourselves into the news, kung ano na talaga ang mga developments. Kasi, napakahirap talaga ang sitwasyon na tayo'y nakikipaglaban sa isang kalaban na hindi natin nakikita. We don't even know that we are even carriers of that. Because to the situations like, kung sa'y tawag nga wala kay symptoms, asymptomatic ka. So, wala ka kay balong, na sa imo. But you kept on moving. And you have engaged to a lot of people. Thereby, there was a risk of transmission. So, muna, kining apprenticeship is a modality only when the health conditions allowed according to our health authorities or our local government units who have the authority. All of these agencies who have the authority to study the situations.
So RD, naatay face-to-face delivery, naatay apprenticeship, nasa tay gatawgon nga blended learning. Pero RD, di ba, what if dili gito mahinayon ang even the limited face-to-face? How do we go about blended learning then?
If I bring it back to what Secretary Briones talked about the proposal to the President, ingon siya baka i-allow ko no ang face-to-face January 2021. She emphatically said that. Or probably to low-risk areas that can also be allowed. But when we speak of blended learning, where kana magong blended learning, the original concept of blended learning really has face-to-face as a regular feature partnered with other learning delivery modalities. So blended, kombinasyon, no? Pero ang kombinasyon na yan ay nandyan talaga si face-to-face. So face-to-face with, pasadahan ko na lang, no? Face-to-face with online, face-to-face with offline, face-to-face with modular approach, face-to-face with TV, face-to-face. Nandun talaga si face-to-face. Yun yung tinatawag na blended learning. Bakit kailangan dun si face-to-face, no? Earlier on, I said, ang atong limited face-to-face or reduced class size face-to-face, panalitan. Sa akong bata nga 40, I will only meet on a Monday, 10 of them because I'm allowed. We are in a low-risk area. Tapos we also have complied the requirements in terms of protocols. So, kanang pulo, akong i-meet sa Monday. Unsa di buhaton sa kong 30? So, they have to study from home. Kung uso ngayon ang FH, work from home, then mag-study from home ang mga bata. And how do they study? Mo na tong other modalities nga ilang gamiton. Siguro nagbasa og self-learning modules ang mga bata sa balay, no? So, samtang gi-meet na ko ang pulo. Tuesday, I would probably meet the second 10 of the 40, no? The third day, ingon ana. So, blended yun siya, kay kombinasyon man nga ang bata niya ato eskwelahan, but daghan ganing panahon po niya ang bata nagtuon lang dito sa iyang balay. It's what we call blended learning. And there is really an advantage if blended learning can be implemented with face-to-face if God allows and if the conditions allow, kay daghan manggong ma-address ana. Number 1, resource requirements on the printing of modules na with Region 10's enrollment of close to 1 million already. Yesterday, dili tiaw ang mag-produce sa mga modules sa tanang subject sa tanang grado to the 1 million learners. So kung naay mag face-to-face, dili na kanako tagaan sa module nga muana ka sa kong school. So ang lesson nga naa ka sa school, scheduled na to na I will not give you the modules because you will be with me learning.
So pwede siya magamit sa uban.
Oo. And on the days nga ato siya dito, magamit siya and then pwede siya magamit sa uban ng modules and they can also exchange. Una sa ato ang blended learning. So second, ang importante po ginaagid untay blended learning hanggat maaari pero huwag nating isaalang-alang ang safety pa rin is the progress monitoring. Paano mo imo-monitor na may progreso sa pagkatuto ng bata? Hindi masyadong madali mag-monitor kung ang bata ay nasa bahay lang at nasa bahay ka rin lang. If I'm the teacher, I'm in school or I'm at home, how would I know that my 40 students really are learning in their SLM or self-learning module engagements day after day during the entire week? So, saan ako siya pag-progress monitor? Ako siyang tawagan. Huwag na siya cellphone. Wa siya cellphone. Saan ako? Unta to, huwag na siya internet. I can do it interactive, live, real-time, because we can exchange words. Labi na ng Facebook, na may messenger na diya. Libre man na. But you really have to have a load to get connected with the internet. Pero kung wala lagi sa mga gadgets ng ingunana, kunya bisag usa na lang sa usa ka semana magkita ta kay ay allowed man lagi ang blended learning face to face, lami unta gito because I can do the assessments kay kung saan man ako pakibalungan nagtuon gyud ka. So I'll do my assessment. I will give you exercises to revalidate whether talaga bang ikaw ang sumagot ng mga test nandoon na napapaloob na sa self-learning modules. So again, that's blended learning. But apparently, there is still a very big challenge to do that at this height of the pandemic because I think Attorney and Ramon, as you keep on watching news day after day, nagyoy fresh cases, nagyoy increases in the figures. Parag wala yung figures sa entire Philippines on COVID positives nga na-maintain or ninaog. Sige yung increase. So as it increases, then that also increases our scare, our threat, our vulnerabilities, or our susceptibilities to transmission. So mauna nga, ang blended, ingat-ingat lang talaga tayo.
matawag bagyapon nato na RD nga blended learning. For example, if there is this absence of limited face-to-face, so ang isa ka learning modality will be blended with another
With
learning
another
modality.
or kinahanglan gyud ang ihang partner
Kay common
RD
denominator man ang kuan.
face-to-face gyud.
Uy, excuse me. Murag na.
Imong cellphone na kayo.
Naikuan ni siya.
Nanawag imong kuan.
Muligtas sa
Oo.
imong
Customer.
utang.
Patyasan.
Muna siya gatawgon og kanang kuan RD. Na di lagi siya mapalong. Hato sa ipakon sa atong crew ha. Oh, Fats. Thank you, Fats.
Ilabay sa nata.
Kwanto sa RD sa tawgan kaning
Blended ba to?
Oo, blended ba to na kinahanglan ba gyud
Oh.
RD nga ang paris sa uban modality face-to-face gyud or pwede la di
Pwede-
face-to-face iyang paris?
pwede ta na ay modified blended learning RD?
The original concept, as I said earlier on blended learning, lagi face-to-face. Pero, kung tanaw na to ng blended, sagol-sagol man na. Ug magsagol da ita nga walay face-to-face. Isagol si online, isagol si offline, isagol si modular, isagol si TV,
So
isagol
blended
si radio
paghihapon
base.
na.
Blended Japon. Pero ang tawag na ito nga nakaroon is blended distance learning. Kasi
Okay.
lahat po siya ay ina-adapt or ginagamit ng bata na wala sa silid-aralan. Wala siya sa harap ng teacher. So ladies and gentlemen, distance learning is our password at this time. Dayon ako sa ning i-discuss ug unsa ning mga distance learning. Number one ni Ana is online. Kabalon mo ta kung sa online. It needs gadget. It needs technology infrastructure. Does it need internet connection? Of course. Kaya dili siya tawgon online ug wala internet. So again, it needs gadget. It needs internet connectivity, and we can only connect to internet if we have the subscription. If we have the loads. Nya kanang loads, kuan na, daghang pabaagi, no? Daghang ang online and daghang forms. So that's why it's really challenging, no? And we can only deliver online for students who really are capable in terms of digital readiness by virtue of possessing the infrastructure requirements. Sa atong in Region 10, very emphatic ang atong Cagayan de Oro City Division is now trying to saturate organizing classes that are capable of online. Because sa sinabi ko lang kanina, kapag maraming na-organisa natin for online classes, yun po din ang implication yan is kokonti din yung ating mga pangangailangan for the module printing. Oh. Kaya lang, ang tanong, ang internet connection. Kasi, number one, it's not just about gadget. It's also about signal. So, kung ang imo pong lugar nga gipuy-an, dead spot area, even if you have full subscription but you cannot connect because there's no signal, that's another challenge.
Not only that, RD ha, masin gani katong wala pa ang COVID nga pandemic, lisod gani ang signal RD.
Correct.
How much more kung tanan at estudyante, teachers, parents maggamit og internet connectivity, magdungan og gamit.
But we also would like to acknowledge the efforts done by the government right now across agencies to really help strengthen the capacity of our internet signals, connections. Kay ang atong DICT, ang atong National Telecommunications Office, tanan sila karon because this is the password, no? Di lang man ang education mo gamit sa online because when you call your staff, when you meet your staff, and face-to-face cannot be allowed in your meeting, so maggamit yung kag online, no? So back to the issue on children studying online. Gidefine pag gina into two different classifications, the synchronous and the asynchronous. So synchronous is real time. Kapag gumagamit tayo ng platforms like Zoom, Meet, unsa pa na kanang uban na MS Teams, then learning management systems like Moodle, Edmodo, Canvas, ang dami, no? Kapag ginamit yan, real time yan eh, interactive. Pwede akong magtanong, pwede kayong magtanong, sasagutin din kita. I also want feedback, I can get it right during the time of the discussion. And this is very ideal. Sana if we are just ready for the online, magaling sana to. Maganda talagang pamalit doon sa face-to-face. Meron din tayo tinatawag na asynchronous online. Asynchronous is, kailangan ba ng internet? Kailangan ba ng gadget? Kailangan ng gadget, kailangan ng internet. Kaya lang, you manage your own time. Example, bigyan kita ng link, you try to surf research ka in this link I will provide. So halimbawa, meron kang ginagawa na mas importante o mas urgent, pwedeng sabihin ng bata na, mamaya ang gabi, tingnan ko yung YouTube link na binigay ni sir. Ganon. Tapos, pwede akong mag-email sa'yo na after watching the video that I requested you to do it, give your reflection, email sa akin, text me or message me sa messenger. These are all platforms of technologies that we can take advantage and very fit for asynchronous online learning.
So pwede nila tunan or tanawon katong video lessons bale at their own pace siguro.
At their own
Time
of comfort. And then most importantly, kinahanglan gyud nga naa gyud ka nga teacher activity nga mo check if it's done, what is it that contributes to child's learning on the topic you gave them. So mo nang mag-email ka, mag-text ka, sana SMS, messenger, and all that. It's really as a backup to the child's learning asynchronous online. Dapat tayo gitawag og offline. So, ikaduhang klase sa distance learning is offline. Offline, attorney, is kanang kuan. Digital copies, soft copies, nga. Imbis na gaan tikag module, printed module, I'll not give you because may laptop ka man sa bahay, may computer ka man sa bahay. Instead of giving you the printed copy, I'll just give you the soft copy, ang tawag nila. Tapos na po yung mga interactive videos na gipang record na gibutang sa CD and sa USB, akong ipadala nimo. Does it need on internet connection? No. Kay inisaksak nimo sa imong laptop, matanaw man nimo ang movie nga akong yatag nimo sa USB or CD. Tapos katong mga discussions, katong mga module nga soft copy. So you can continue learning through the self-learning module but soft copy by looking at the monitor of your computer. So di na kanako tagaan og katong printed nga papel gyud nga SLM. That's offline. And number 3, mo gini gipangandaman nato kay daghang mga ginikanan na magbalik-balik og pangutana. And I have nothing personal against that, no? Because when they express their concern, when they ask, that means they really are very concerned about their kids' learning, no? Namay uban, online lagi, unya kay wala man mi internet. Offline, wala man sad mi computer. Kuan lang ta offline, wala man sad mi kuryente. Unsaon man gid na, because reality check, in the entire archipelago of the Philippines, there's still a very good number of areas that are not even energized. And our learners cannot be deprived to learn just because of this limitation. Kasi sabi natin, education for all. Ang dami nating mga key messages. Education for all, no one is left behind. So to be true to all these promises, then we have to strategize. Morning kining modular learning delivery modality nga atong ipangandaman. Morning mutubag sa tanang mga estudyante ang answer na amo ani no, na amo ani no, na amo ani no. So we give you the printed copy of the self-learning modules. Muna atong gi-prepare karon. Dayon i-deliver na sa teacher or pick upon sa parent dito sa school or pick upon dito sa barrio hall. We will partner with the local leaders like Purok officials, barangay officials to help us in the delivery and the retrieval of these modules as they will be using it week after week. Okay? Di man pud mahimog yun nga og lisod giday kayo ang kahimtang sa pandemic. So di gyud mahimo nga silang tanan kuha. And we strategize that, and we are giving so much empowerment and decentralized decisions to principals to choosing the kind of modality and even operationalizing that modality to include, for example, distribution and retrieval of SLMs. Paano niya gawin yon? Paano niya diskartehin yon? For example, kung ihatid sa teacher, is the principal supporting the teacher going to houses, no? House-to-house distribution in terms of support, in terms of transportation allowance. So, kinahanglan gyud na. And the principals can actually support using the MOOE of the schools. But, of course, MOOE has big limitations. So ano lang, strategize, rotational, schedule it to make sure that everybody is also given that support. Bahala ginagmay, basta tanan. Diba? What applies to one should apply to all. In the spirit of fairness.
And RD, am I correct in my understanding? Our students and parents are given the option to choose which modality they will prefer.
Yes, but they have to connect, number one, with their teachers and their principals because the entire school will give the approval, no? Hindi naman talaga siya approval, pero kasi aralin yan kung may kakayahan din ba ang eskwelahan. Hindi lang kasi kakayahan ng bata. Kakayahan ng bata, ng eskwelahan, ng teacher. That's why this is really a collaboration efforts because in delivering this kind of modality, it's not just giving you the module. It's orienting you, the child, in this new modality. I make sure I will be able to educate the parent as to his role for the child learning at home using the printed self-learning module. And then, capacitate, how will the teacher manage his class on distance learning using modular approach? So, teacher training. The principal is tasked or mandated to do instructional supervision for teachers doing the teaching. So, kung akong principal, paano ko nga mamonitor din yung teacher in terms of managing distance learning? Lahat ito po ay bago sa atin. That's why all of us in the different levels of governance have to be capacitated. Kahit gano'n ka kadunong na principal, ang galing-galing mo on instructional supervision, but you were just limited over the years of using that instructional supervision to be going to the classroom, observe actual teaching and learning, ngayon na hindi mo makikita at wala nga tao sa eskwelahan mo. So, paano mo siya ma-supervise? So again, capacitating even the education leaders really are very important. So, dami talagang pag-uusapan.
RD, in connection to the question of Sir Ramon that the parents are given the option to choose what modality they are going to avail of for their kids. Now, one of the questions we received in our Oplan Balik Eskwela hotline is that among all these modalities, pariha ba kunog sulod, pariha ba kunog content ang ilang madawat sa tanan modality kung unsa ilang pilion?
Definitely, because all these are anchored at our curriculum. Ang atong curriculum, istoryahon na to na, daghan kay na. And the original curriculum of K-12, which we call it curriculum guide, really has 15,000 competencies to learn, to be learned by a child from kindergarten to grade 12. Of course, 13 years din yan, pero aralin mo 15,000 competencies. Napakadami. At dahil sa limitasyon ng pandemic, we cannot expect that the 15,000 can be learned. So the Central Office DepEd has streamlined our curriculum by streamlining the competencies from 15,000 to around 11,000 sa ilang unang gihimo nga evaluation nga ang tawag, essential learning competencies. But that 10 to 11,000 competencies, hindi pa rin sapat. Madami pa rin yan. Dahil may pandemya. Kasi una yung essential learning competencies was a product of their curriculum review. Kasi a curriculum implemented has to undergo review every 3 years if we want to have a very relevant, very effective, and very fit kind of curriculum. So yun, naging 10 to 11,000. But because of pandemic, nag-streamline ulit yung DepEd at umabot na sila sa ang tawag ngayon ay MELC, M-E-L-C, the most essential learning competencies to 5,000 competencies only. Lahat ng subjects nandun pa rin yun, attorney, kasi inaral ng ating mga curriculum experts. All these subjects are really very important to develop the 21st century skills of the learner. So even music, arts, and PE are still contributing to the 21st century development skills of the learner. So wala talagang subject na tinanggal. Ang tinanggal. Ang mga tinanggal ay yung mga competencies. Some were merged, some were taken out, some were retained, some were... Ang daming ginawa, no? So yun. Tapos, ano nga ulit mo yung question mo, attorney?
if kung unsa bay piliun sa atong mga ginikanan, if
Parehas ba?
parehas ba og sulod, kung modular or online.
Parehas gyud kay kining self-learning module nga gisulat sa atong Department of Education karon, which every region is involved. Mao gito'y basihan. So kung mag-online ka, the self-learning module prepared by the Department of Education will still be the same material na gamiton sa online. Kaya lang electronic siya, so copy siya. Kung for example, naman tayo radio-based instruction. So itong self-learning module will also be converted into radio scripts na mo ay madunggan sa bata sa radyo na nagtuon siya pinaagi sa radyo. So apparently these are the same, all these modalities will use the same lesson focus, lesson delivery, even the pedagogies. So mauna sa ato ang modular approach. Tapos kung ingon sila, tama parent mamili, pero tanungin din ng parent, may kakayahan ba ako na ito yung modality na ipiliin ng anak ko? For example, gusto gyud ko anang online. Nya, diday ka mo palit og laptop sa imong anak. Because we are very sad that our Department of Education does not have commitments to provide gadgets to all the 27 million learners enrolled in the country. Ikadaghan anak. One day, 21 million siguro takaron. Huwag man nato na perfect ang atong target. So, walay commitment. Dahil upalitan po ng gadget, nang load na po, issue. So, ako gyud, if I'm a very concerned parent and I'm also capable, I should provide the best for my kids. Mga learning resources requirements. Sumo na siya.
So RD, sa madaling salita, wala nag-ingon ang DepEd nga kinahanglan mamalit gyud sa gadget.
Nag-encourage lang ta kasi nagdepende po yan sa kakayahan financial ng teacher, ng bata. Pero kung hindi talaga kaya ng pamilya, ng magulang, meron tayong ibang modality. Kaya nga gumagawa tayo ng menu of modalities para kung saan kayo pwede, doon tayo. Kasi we also appreciate that our local government units are even helping us, no? Like the review that they're doing in terms of their budgets at the Special Education Fund or the Local School Board Fund na i-augment sa mga pangangailangan. So, kung ang budget was, there's a significant amount na pamintal sa room, di na kasi yan urgent eh. This is not relevant ngayon. Kasi why do we have to repaint the classroom when children are not there? So instead, doon is support. And some of the LGUs are even buying laptops, tablets for the learners. Some are supporting the printing of our modules. Ganun po yan. And some are even funding us to the next distance learning modality that I will talk about. Kanang TV and radio-based instruction. In Region 10, hindi po tayo neophyte in terms of radio-based. Because there's one model we're looking at right now which is used in the alternative learning system in the city of Malaybalay that's running already for 12 years. Itong ating RBI, radio-based instruction in Malaybalay City. And apparently, daghan na kaayo ang ating mga divisions accomplishments in terms of negotiating local radio stations or even TV. Diretso na lang ang TV po. In terms of partnership to get airtime and probably taking advantage on the free airtime that they will give as part of their corporate social responsibility.
Kung kaya ihatag sa mga radio stations.
Kung kaya ihatag sa radio stations. Apparently naman po imuhatag og 3 ka oras kada semana. So, itagpi-tagpi natin. Kung si radio station 1 magbigay ng 3 oras sa Lunes, tapos si radio station 2 magbigay ng 2 oras Lunes din ng umaga. So, i-connect ako yung 3 and 2 magiging 5 oras na libre yon bawat isang araw, bawat linggo. Eh, madami namang radio stations in the whole region. May mga privately owned, meron ding government owned. We're even happy that many of our government-owned radio stations are already offered to the Department of Education for maximum use in terms of time.
And hopefully, RD, ang tanan nga time slot siguro will be filled in siguro, no?
Oh, pero tama, pero dili man pud mahimo gyud nga. If I am a learner to use radio-based instruction, dili man mahimo nga ang bata maminaw radyo alas 8 tama alas 5. No, mag-usa na nga makatulog na sa panimati. No? So, ang ato yung TV and radio-based instructions are not stand-alone modalities. They have to be part of the blended distance learning. Pamaris doon sa module. Pamaris doon sa online-offline. Kasi, napakahirap. At saka kapag makinig kasi ako ng lesson sa radyo, ano kadid ko? Kung maminaw ko sa lesson, for example, no? Subject-verb agreement. Hindi pwedeng matututo ako dahil sa pakikinig lang. So, kailangan, meron akong task na gagawin. Susubukan ko ang aking napakinggan kung talagang pumasok ba sa kukote ko. So, I will be given an activity sheet, a practice exercise, na pagkatapos kong makinig ng radyo, gagawin ko siya. So, you don't really need to listen 5 hours or 8 hours a day.
Or we might have a problem with attention span.
Apart from that, no?
So kinahanglan sad siguro mahibalaan sa atong mga ginikanan kung unsa klase nga learner ilang mga anak.
Correct. Nagyud tay profiling of learners, no? And our teachers can actually give so much information about the profiles of learners' learning styles. Kay daghan na kay tag-input anang kanang multiple intelligence theory of Howard Gardner na kung if you are a musically inclined learner, then I must give you exercises in a form of a music that will still allow you to learn even the language lesson through singing, no?
O kung ang bata ay di gusto rin siya maglingkod rin sa bintana,
So, mga ganon, no?
say what?
Iba't ibang kakayahan because there are 8 kinds of intelligences that we also have to take a look at and consider. Tapos teachers teaching style should be tailored fit. But apparently, there's a greater challenge now because it's distance learning. So, bauna siya. Bisan gani magtanaw kag TV, dili gyud mahimo nga from 8 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's also the purpose, I believe, of the advertisements. So, nag-break kahit papano. No? And RD, how about ang assessment? How do we go about assessment? How do we ensure that it is really the students that do the tasks and not their parents?
That will be a big topic that I will discuss the next episode.
Okay.
Kasi
Antabayanan.
Antabayanan natin yan. No? Abangan ninyo ang susunod pang mga kabanata ng ating palabas. But I'll try to discuss with you first about the Sulong Edukalidad program of DepEd. Kasi marami nagsasabi, sir, I remember last year there was a pivot program of DepEd from access to quality. Sulong Edukalidad, and it has 4 features, no? Ngayon, sir, di kalidad, di quality eh. Can we relax quality now that we are delivering education in distance learning way? Hindi po pwede. Kasi kailangan talaga matututo din ang... We're not doing this for the sake of... because there's pandemic and for the sake of killing time. It is not. We really have to still look at quality of learning. And I believe, kasi my principal attorney na learning takes place anytime, anywhere. So it doesn't have to be... It has not to be confined in the 4 walls of the classrooms. It can happen anytime, anywhere. Tapos, kalimang ko sa eskwela pa ko sa college, nag-enroll ko education. The first principle in learning is all children learn, regardless of age, sex, religion, even the physically challenged children, or even those with mental limitations, mga special education. They have the capacity to learn when they are given the correct guidance. So, mauna. So, from that Sulong Edukalidad, pivoting from access to quality, we still push through with that because in spite of this situation now, where there are so much restrictions and limitations, quality cannot be put at stake, cannot be underestimated. How do we do that Sulong Edukalidad? Number 1, well-developed curriculum. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, Ramon, na we have streamlined the curriculum from 50,000 to 5,000, looking at the most essential or the most enduring competencies that students cannot live without, cannot go to life without. These are mga non-negotiable competencies. That's part of the curriculum review na ginawa nila. Number 2, part of the Sulong Edukalidad component, actually gitawag nila to sa English o kite component, K-I-T-E. Saan ang kite? Sa Tagalog, saranggola. Tabanog. Ipalupad. No. Ipapalipad natin ang saranggola. Lilipad lang si sulong edukalidad saranggola kapag number 1, K man to K to 12 curriculum. Kailangan na ayos. Number 2, kite, I. I stands for Improved Learning Environment. Kasi hindi pwedeng, napakaganda nga, napaka-relevant na ang curriculum, pero ang environment naman is not
Really conducive.
Di na conducive. And when we speak of environment, it does not even have to only be the physical environment, physical setup. Parents are part of the environment. The teacher is part of the environment. The material is part of the environment. And of course, the facilities and equipment.
Even the home is an learning environment.
Yes.
Labi na karon.
Correct.
Mabitaw na nga sa atong distance learning. One requirement, good, is dapat na agi learning space ang bata sa classroom. Ay, sa balay. Sir, saan man na mo pag learning space nga, diya may magluto, diya may mangaon, diya may matulog. For as long as you designate an area, kahit anong itsura niyan, it doesn't have to be a room, it doesn't have to be a table, it can even just be a box, na ikulob ni mo ang box, may mo niya labi sa lamisa. Basta it's a designated area during the day where the student sits down and learn. So, mauna, part of learning environment. And we cannot improve that learning environment kung dili ta mo tabang tanan. So, again, KITE, I stands for improve. It's not just the ordinary but improved learning environment. Letter T stands for teachers. Ang teacher ay napakahalaga. Kahit distance learning ito, hindi pwedeng, walang pamalit si teacher o sa teacher eh. I think even in the era where technology is indispensable, teacher is still the best material, the best audiovisual support to child's learning. So, kapag teacher ang pag-uusapan, we capacitate. So, upskill the teacher, train the teacher, capacitate the teacher. Kaya nga, nitong nakaraang buwan ng Mayo at Hunyo, naglipara ng mga webinars because we want to train our teachers in the new modality of learning, not just teaching but learning. The teacher himself has to learn. And ito nga, mga webinars natin, mga training na napakadami na, libre. So may mga training pa na internationally conceptualized and delivered without a fee, so mga ganon. So very important is the T, teachers upskilling. Tapos letter E, the last letter of the word kite is our engagement of stakeholders. Hindi po natin kaya to. Etong pandemya, to stop this needs everyone. To deliver education needs everyone. Paulit-ulit kong sinasabi yung mga key messages ko that it takes the entire village to raise, educate, and nurture the child. Education is everybody's business. LGU has to be concerned with education. Kasi yung mga kabataan na mga anak ng kanilang constituents are the clients of the Department of Education. And if they do not support, then that will also be detrimental to the children of their constituents and will somehow affect the way they live their lives. So napaka-importante talaga yung stakeholders. Internal and external stakeholders. Kaya lalong-lalo na sa pamamaraan natin, nangabitaw sila nga, module, saan po ng module? Kasi mga tunana. If I am the teacher tasked to distribute, do I have the luxury of time to distribute to my 40 students living in 40 different houses and probably different locations? Di kaya yun ng teacher. At saka hindi lang isang beses kasi mag-distribute eh. Baka weekly or baka by unit yung mga module na yun. So kailangan talaga natin magtulungan and we are banking on our parents. Ito na po ang panahon na kailangan natin paigtingin ang ating relasyon. Parents Teachers Association and other organizations, civic organizations that we can tap on to really help deliver the education in this time of pandemic.
And RD, speaking of training, we already have capacitated our teachers. How about our parents? Do we have a special training for our parents?
That's also another topic.
para excited.
Pero just to give you in a capsule, what have we done already? Nanatay nahimong concept of a training in terms of how we orient our teachers in their new roles at these new learning landscapes. And as a matter of fact, we already have delivered the training of trainers. Nauman na natog train ang mga trainers sa 14 divisions, apparently 9 cities and 5 provinces of Northern Mindanao. But there is still an ongoing negotiation with the Philippine Information Agency, kapisanan ng mga broadcasters sa Pilipinas, and the Regional Development Council as the convener na among itapukon ang tanang radio, TV, owners or representatives to discuss, kasi once we deliver it at the grassroots level, we are banking on live, simultaneous telecast or broadcast na anang Lunes, alas 8, tanang katawan sa Region 10, pamati mo sa tanang radio station, bisan asa mo kay parehara ang inyong madunggan, i-orient ang mga ginikanan, unsa karon ng ilang papel sa distance learning or sa education in the new normal. Kasi dapat silang ma-orient. But that does not stop the efforts of the divisions that right now, they're already starting to deliver the training we gave them. And kana suggestive lang po na nga training in terms of content, topics, and delivery modalities, kasi we still give them the empowerment to do adaptations or do revisions the way they think that would better fit the conditions. No? Tapos, dili kita kapuyan og balik-balik og istorya ani nga mga topika. Kay daghan kay tang dapat pasabton. No? And we learn through repetitive advocacies. No? So, dili ma-preempt nga, sir, tapok pag yung kaadtong mga radio stations para sa simultaneous live broadcast nga nag-deliver naman sila now del Norte, nag-deliver na si Camiguin. Again, it does not preempt because we need to saturate the understanding of our parents in terms of the roles that they have for this new learning landscape. Salamat sa mga ginikanan. We appreciated actually your support that you have given all along to your kids. But this time, it's not just the same support we expect from you. Kaya sa una, mauni inyong mga extent of or magnitude of help, mas grabe yun karon among giasahan ninyo because again, distance learning modality, the child will be most of the time with you, not with the teacher at the side. So we really need your assistance. Then mingon, sir, unsaon po itong gusto mo tabang sa bata, walay time. Kaya nagtrabaho po. Sir, naapoy ba ginikanan nga naon tay time di pud kabalo unsaon pagtudlo. These are issues that we will talk about in the next episodes.
RD, if I may just go back to the production or reproduction of the SLMs, self-learning modules, how do we go about the printing of these modules?
The modules, let's start with the development. The modules are developed by our outstanding, competent, very good teachers of the region, kindergarten to grade 12. The entire Philippines also wrote modules, developed modules, shared to the different regions of the country, 17 regions, and developed these modules for everybody's use. Kahuman ana, human sa module nga gisulat using the targeting the most essential learning competencies, i-quality assure, i-evaluate, i-edit, i-correctan para ma-perfect. But if we don't reach perfection, at least we are able to really to evaluate it, no? And then naapay gitawag o conformance review that DepEd Central Office is doing for all these modules. Printing, kung saan pag-print, ay di i-print, pero as a tagbayad, kwarta, kay kinalam yung kwarta, we are banking on, number one, the MOOE of the schools, of the divisions of the region. Next, ang MOOE, di po mahimughot doon sa printing sa module. Kaya unsa ibayad security guard, unsa ibayad sa kurintig tubig. These are mandatory utilities that cannot be dispensed with. So, katong uban lang nga mga parte sa ilang kanang magong MOOE kada bulan gud na. So, katong mag-save gyud ang principal nga maka-support po dito sa printing of the module. Again, support lang, subsidized augment. Number 2, ang atong special education fund sa LGUs. We're very happy that there are already good local government unit commitments to support the printing of the modules. One of that, silang tanan, the 14 divisions. Indot yung gayo, no? Like example, Iligan has prepared like 60 million to support the implementation of the learning continuity plans of the division, all that, no? And of course, there is a deliberate funding that is given by the Department of Education to the different divisions to support the printing of these modules. Billions ang pinag-uusapan natin. And ang DepEd, wala po kasi yan sa budget for the year kasi the budget was perfected January when pandemic was still not in the air. Pero nagawan pa rin ang paraan ng DepEd, nag-realign, nag-reprogram, nag-restructure ng work and financial plans para magkaroon talaga ng pondo to subsidize the printing of the modules. The module resource requirements of the entire DepEd is not enough sa kanilang naliko. Kaya nga ito ay i-augment ng MOOE, ng SEF, and other government and non-government organizations that are education partners. For example, the World Vision, nag-donate ko noong laptops diri sa itong mga divisions. Daghan na UNICEF, Save the Children Philippines. Marami po tayong education partners na ngayon ay nag-aambag-ambagan paano sila makatulong. I think our East West Bank, City Savings, meron na silang mga commitments like bili ng risograph, mga machines na ganito. So, it's really a collaboration of resource generation to be able to meet the requirements. And strategies po ang mga divisions. Kung halimbawa hindi talaga matugunan ang lahat, mag-strategize sila. Isa sa very popular strategy na iniisip ngayon ng mga division, actually ginagawa na siguro, is really coming up with sets A, B, C, D materials. Set A, set B, set C, set D. Ibig sabihin, kung ikaw, estudyante 1 ko, you are my second student, at wala akong masyadong resources para mabigyan kayo ng modules na tagsa-tagsag yun mo, so probably I'll give you English and Math, and then Science and Filipino. Probably after 2 days, mag-exchange kayo. So that will save some of my amount to reproduce all, but not to everyone. All modules are reproduced, but not 1:1 ratio. Mga strategies lang.
Baylo-baylo lang lugar RD.
Magbaylo-baylo sila.
Kaya itong hibalan na sa una RD, kung maistrata, magbuhat, aron di makapangupya.
Nakapangupya.
Set A, imo set B, ang sa tapat.
test.
Sa test.
Kaya, English ko na kung gitaken, yung math ka, saan mo pagpangupya. So, parang ganun ang magiging usapin, no? Magiging strategiya nila sa pagtugon ng kahirapan in terms of resources requirements.
Alright. So, attorney, murag daghan na magina istorya bigod si RD, no? So, but daghan pa kay tag istoryahan.
Daghan pa tag istoryahan kina ingon na gud siya daan og next episode kina kuyawan ko nahurot naman ni RD na pa ba kay next episode ani ba simulan na tay trabaho.
Pero actually kung gusto ko ni RD, pwede niya hurot doon karon. But we will reserve these topics in our next episodes.
Ang daming topics, and I hope you'll be able, people out there listening, watching this episode, we can give you probably a tawag niyan, contact numbers.
Actually, RD, they can still use the OBE hotline that we
Yes.
have.
Naman tayo OBE
So,
hotline.
mga
OBE
pangutana
hotline.
nila, pwede sila mangutana dito.
You can ask questions there. You can even suggest topics that we shall talk about that's in relation to what DepEd is doing right now. Like concerns of parents. Dito ninyo. And then that can be incorporated to the discussions that we shall deliver episode to episode.
So, alright. Any final word, RD? Just before we end today's episode.
Wala na pong atrasan. Tuloy itong ating ginagawa. May hinahanda na po tayo. Kung hindi pa siya enough, then ating pupunuan. Because education really has to continue. And again, I would like to just go back to things that are very essential and non-negotiable. One, safety. Health, number 1 talaga yan. Kahit sa anong paraan. So kung kailangan talaga may isakripisyo dahil sa health, then sacrifice a little bit. The sacrifice may not take a week, a month. So depende na lang po yan. in the delivery, for example, sa pagbibigay in delivery of education, na kailangan mag-relax for a day because there is really a very pressing, urgent, and apparent issue, then we cannot sacrifice health, safety. Number 2 is, let's continue learning so we can be confident. Building confidence is very essential. Kasi kapag confident tayo na kaya natin ma-deliver to, kaya matutunan ng bata ito, kaya natin matugunan ang mga resources. When I speak of confidence, it will encompass all areas of confidence level. So, importante talaga yon. And, mga tinikanan, gusto din mo na akong awhagon, na kitang tanan, mag-amping, pero kitang tanan, magpa-eskwela gyud sa atong mga anak. Because I think everybody believes in the power of education that can make the difference in one's life. Everybody agrees with me on that. Kami gani, dili lang ingon nga, eskwela mo, kay educator man mi, so dapat gano'n. Hindi. Kasi proven na po na ang edukasyon talaga ang magpabago. Ano ba yan? Magpapabago ng buhay ng tao. Hindi lang sa physical na anyo, hindi lang sa financial na anyo, but even the way he thinks, the way he reacts, the way he lives his life is really inspired by that education that he got. Very, very important. And in closing, I would like to use what the former president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, said, that only education can be our strongest weapon to change the world. Ayong hapon.
And with that, RD, thank you very much for sharing your most precious time with us. Definitely, we have learned a lot from you. It's been a productive session for all of us. Right, Attorney?
Yes, Sir Mon. Correct yun ka din ha. Ug ato sad pasalamatan ang atong mga viewers. Hinaut pa nga daghan-daghan na sila ug mudaghan pa sa sunod nato nga mga episodes. Sigurado ko nga daghan kay silang natun-an karon lang ganing adlaw sa atong episode. Ug sa umaabot pa na episode, daghan pa gyud mas matun-an pa.
I'm pretty sure, Attorney, dili lang karon kay sa sunod nato nga programa daghan tag bag-ong segments sama sa Anong Bago, Arturo, and this will help us disseminate latest DepEd issuances and other relevant pieces of information.
Yes, Sir Mon. And aside from that, we will also have For the Win, Norman, to highlight the region's recognition and awards. This segment will also feature DepEd learners, teachers, staff, organizations, and offices for their accomplishments and innovations. Excited kay ko ani Sir Mon, kay basing pa di ay maapil ta dito sa For the Win, Norman.
Ikaw excited ka, pero ako kulbaan ko because that would mean more work. But kidding aside, Attorney, I'm also looking forward to these new segments.
I'm pretty sure, Sir Ramon, dili lang kita ang excited. Kaya ang atong mga kauban sa tibuok Department of Education Region 10, sure ko excited pud sila aning umaabot pa nga mga features nato sa atong episodes.
Agree. And just before we end, Attorney, RD, we would like to thank our technical staff for helping us out. Kay kung wala ni sila, dili gid ma-materialize ato ang pilot episode. Atong pasalamatan atong ICT headed by Sir Elson. We also have Sir Ralph and then Ma'am Fatima.
We also have our staff from the Office of the Regional Director,
Correct.
si Sir Clifford, si Ma'am Lalang, si Ma'am Juvie, o glabaw sa tanan, dili makaabot sa iyang adtuhan si RD kung wala si Kuya Philip.
Correct. And not to forget, ang entire DepEd family. Thank you very much.
And that also say thanks to your makeup artist.
Wala pa karon, RD.
Wala pa mga makeup artist.
Wala pa. For our wardrobe, RD, we would like to thank, pasalamatan ako ang akong pikas pitaka nga ako sa giutangan karon para makapalit sa atong wardrobe.
Sa sunod, next time, RD, expect na namin pasalamatan.
Ang aparador nimo. So gibutangan sa imong mga sinina.
Correct. Mga hurot kada atong mga kwan aning ibang arrange dito gipamilo. Anyway, ug dinhi natapos atong programa karong adlaw.
Hangtod sa sunod higayon, kini si Attorney Candice Razon
ug kini usab si Ramon Gonzales Abrera, ang inyong kauban sa yuta, tubig, hangin,
sunog og apil sa kasing-kasing. And once again, kini ang
BigaTEN, DepEd 10. Ay, ato sa otro hol, ato ipaawat si RD.
Si RD.
Oh,
Og
mao si RD.
atong tanan
Oh.
viewers, atong tudluan kung
Atong
unsa
tudluan.
ni. Okay, ibutang sa nato atong microphone.
Correct. Ikaw, Attorney. Sige, sige.
Mutan-aw lang minimo.
Okay. And once again, ini ang BigaTEN, DepEd.
Okay, everybody, let's do it. All together. Ready?
All together, this is
BigaTEN, DepEd.